If you look closely at some of the 2022 Formula 1 cars now, compared to how they looked when they were launched, you will see some subtle differences. We're used to the cars themselves changing as aerodynamic upgrades are introduced in pursuit of improved performance, but some teams have made modifications to their livery in the hope of shaving crucial fractions of a second off their lap times. The most obvious example is Williams, which ran at Imola recently with a significant amount of paint removed from its chassis. But it's far from the only team to take such action, proof of just how difficult it is for teams to get their cars down to the minimum weight. So how much difference can it really make to remove a few coats of paint? And why are teams finding it so difficult to hit their targets, given the increase of 46 kilograms in the minimum weight for F1's 2022 regulations? Take a look at the paint job on the Williams FW44 when it was launched in February, and you might notice it's a little different to the version on the car now. For the second race of the season in Saudi Arabia, there was already less blue paint on its rear wing, then the front wing got the same treatment. And at Imola, a significant amount of paint was removed from the chassis, in particular on the top surface forward of the driver. This is all about saving weight. Williams wouldn't confirm how much weight it has shaved off by removing paint from the car, but it is a quick and cost-effective way to find a little performance. Like all teams, Williams has struggled to get down to the minimum weight of 798 kilos this year, and although it's not believed to be the worst affected, it has taken the most visibly obvious action. Of course, given a free hand, the ideal would be to remove all the paint, but every team has to strike a balance between the performance demands and the commercial and branding realities of racing in F1. Of course, Williams is also working on weight reduction in other areas, but given the rule of thumb is that 10 kilos costs you 3 to 4 tenths of a second per lap, depending on the circuit, it's clear that even small savings make a difference. The weight of paint on F1 cars varies, but it's usually said to be somewhere in the 1 to 2 kilogram range. So even if you can save a few hundred grams, it will make a difference, and Williams has saved more than that. Mclaren has also changed its livery since pre-season, with its airbox now less orange than it was originally. Aston Martin also removed around 350 grams of paint ahead of the season-opening Bahrain Grand Prix, most obviously from the side pod. That saving of 350 grams doesn't sound like much, but when hundredths of a second count, it's worth having, even if it's only a short-term measure while components elsewhere on the car are being modified to reduce weight. This is doubly challenging this year even for the big teams given the cost cap constraints, with the baseline figure set at $140 million for the season. Add to that the tendency of aerodynamic performance upgrades to add weight to the car, and it's clear there's a delicate balancing act going on right now for all 10 teams. Of all the teams, Alfa Romeo started the season in the best position and is understood to have been against proposals to increase the minimum weight by more than the extra 3 kilos that was allowed at the start of the season. Red Bull and Mercedes, meanwhile, were reckoned to be overweight measured in double digits of kilos at the start of the year. Teams will get their cars down to the minimum weight, and the rewards for doing so will be significant. And ideally, they will want to be able to do it without cutting and shutting their liveries, given the commercial departments and livery designers aren't delighted to see the look of the car compromised. We'll get into more detail on the reasons for F1's weight struggles in a moment, but first, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoy it, hit the thumbs up to show you like it, as that really does help us keep doing what we do here at the race. And to make sure you don't miss any of our coverage of F1 2022, hit the subscribe button. Formula One's minimum weight has risen by an astonishing 31% over the past 13 years, with much of that rise happening over the past decade. In July 2009, the minimum weight of the car at all times during the event was just 605 kilos, but this season it's 798 kilograms. That's 46 kilos heavier than in 2021, a total that includes the extra 3 kilo increase agreed on the eve of the start of the season. So what has led to the increase? We can break it down into several key areas, but the most significant is the introduction of the hybrid power units in 2014. That coincided with a rise of almost 50 kilos, with teams also struggling then to get down to the minimum weight. Back in the normally aspirated V8 days, there was a minimum weight of the engine set at 95 kilograms, plus KERS, which was first used in 2009, then not run in 2010 by team agreement, before returning in 2011. This year, the minimum weight of the entire power unit is 150 kilos, with an increase to 151 kilograms already penciled in for 2023. There have also been significant increases in safety equipment, including the introduction of the standard specification side impact protection system and most noticeably the Halo in 2018. The Halo alone added 7 kilograms to the car, which as Charles Leclerc at Spa that year showed is a small price to pay for the safety improvement. The ban on refuelling for 2010 also necessitated a larger fuel tank capacity, while the potential aerodynamic advantage of longer cars made teams eager to make the most of the potential size allowed in the rules. And in 2017, when F1 switched to high downforce regulations, the cars got bigger and the tyres wider. More car and more tyre means more weight. The introduction of 18-inch wheel rims has also had a big impact this year, adding just over 11 kilograms to the weight of the cars. The wheel rims are a standard part, so there's no chance to save weight there. The same applies to the standard supply components on the car. The other measure was the introduction of what is effectively a minimum weight for drivers of 80 kilograms, achieved through the addition of ballast to the seat. In isolation, it's difficult to argue with any of the reasoning behind the weight gain, and certainly nobody complains about safety equipment when it saves a driver from serious injury or worse. But cumulatively, this has made the cars not only heavier, but also very difficult even to get down to the on-paper minimum weight. Pretty much everyone agrees that Formula 1 cars should be lighter. The cars are still fast, only very marginally slower than the last generation of rules that were the quickest in F1 history. But the weight makes them less responsive and fun to drive. If you compare footage of F1 cars today to 15 years ago, the difference is visible compared to today's lazier cars. The Grand Prix Drivers Association has discussed the problem regularly and has a policy of pushing to at least stop any further rises. F1's Managing Director of Motorsports, Ross Brawn, has also described the reduction of weight of F1 cars as one of the objectives of the next significant rule changes in 2026. And the FIA has listed both reducing car dimensions and weight as 2 of its 6 objectives for its chassis rules in 2026. Lowering the weight is a laudable objective, but easier said than done. After all, the power of the hybrid system is being increased from the current 120 kilowatts to an expected 350 kilowatts, which is going to require more battery storage capacity. And we can be sure that there will be no reduction in the safety equipment, meaning that it could be difficult to drastically lower the weight, even if the cars are a little smaller. In fact, most of the reasons that cars got so heavy in the first place will likely remain in place, hence perhaps why the FIA's objective is to reduce or contain the car mass. Although the cars getting smaller will help, the underlying need for so much of the weight is difficult to tackle. F1 is right to look to shave off some weight, as it would also have safety benefits by reducing the energy in crashes, and should make it easier for F1's tyre supplier to make more consistent and durable tyres, as well as making the drivers happier. As it is on F1's radar, there is at least the possibility the cars can get lighter in the future. But for now, the teams are stuck with their ongoing fight to get their cars down to the minimum weight, and ideally beyond, so the car can run ballast. Particularly in the first half of this season, the teams that do the best job of this could gain a significant competitive advantage, given that excess weight can have such a big impact on the stopwatch.